Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Living Water. We're starting something new called A Word on the Run. And so what we're going to do is just give you a scripture every week and eventually have this happening every day and expand some revelation behind the scripture that God shows us for the day. Today's scripture is going to be found in Matthew chapter 14, verse 32. And here's what it says. And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased. Now this is the story about Peter walking on the water. And you probably remember this story very well. Jesus said, listen, I want you to go to the other side and I'm going to meet you over there. And following the Lord, they believed he was the Messiah. So they knew in their heart, if Jesus said, go do something, then he's going to do it or meet them somewhere, that is going to happen. So he put them in the boat and he sent them out. So it was Jesus that sent them out. And as they went on their way, they were rowing. And then, of course, you know the story, they came into a great storm. And the storm got worse and worse, and the waves came up. Water was going in the boat. And it said that they all became fearful. They had great fear. And I'm sure they began to row with all their might in the natural. And that's kind of like you and I do. Sometimes we get in a storm, and what we do is we forget the promise of God that we're going to get through the storm, and we start fighting as hard as we can in the natural, and we row really hard. And you know, it said that Jesus had gone up to the mountain to pray. And it said after a time of prayer that he looked out and he saw the disciples rowing against the wind and not really getting anywhere in the storm. But you have to realize there's a storm, there's winds, there's waves, probably a great distance away. So Jesus probably having super ability to see in the natural, I'm sure, but he's probably seeing in the spirit. And he's able to see exactly what's not only taking place, with the storm, with the boat, and with their actions, but also probably understanding what they're going through as individuals. And this is important because we need to know that as we go through a storm, and sometimes we're going through the same storm, all of us together, but we're feeling something different. Yes, they were all afraid, but each one of them was experiencing a different level of fear and something they may have forgotten to do before they got in this boat, thinking, hey, what if we don't get through this storm? I should have done this, or I should have said this before I got into this situation. So then we know that Jesus came and he starts walking on the water. This is the way that he chose to go out to meet them, or to allow the sea eventually to be calm. And he let the sea rage. In fact, it got worse. And as he walked, we go into the second level of fear. And what is that? They saw Jesus and thought he was an apparition. They said he's a ghost. And so their fear intensified. And Jesus said, don't be afraid, it's me. And when he said that, Peter answers and said, hey, if it's really you, Lord, then let me come out of the boat and let me come to you. And he said, come on. And so we know that Peter got out of the boat, and this is the story about Peter walking on water. But what happened? He took his eyes off of Jesus and he began to sink. And so Jesus grabbed his arm and he said, two things to him. Oh, you of little faith, and why did you doubt? You of little faith, and why did you doubt? You knew that I was going to meet you over on the other side. Why would you ever doubt that? Why wouldn't you just understand that what may be taking place around you right now may be a test, but you're going to make it to the other side because I promised. See, the Lord has promised you and I that we're going to get through the things that we're going through right now. We can be assured we're going to get through whatever storm we're in right now. But we have to realize it doesn't always help to row as hard as we can. Sometimes it's better served to remember the promises of God and learn to rest in him and allow him to get us through the storm. Now here's the impact on the scripture that we have to do today on verse 32. And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased. See, this portion we've talked about is often taught, but here's the portion that is rarely taught, or maybe you've never heard it before. How did they get back to the boat? The only way they got back to the boat was walking together on water. I mean, this is a miracle. He surely didn't drag him from the waist-deep water and say, here, let me get you back on the boat. He raised him up. They walked together side by side. He walked as his God, and Peter walked as his people. And together they went back. And as they stepped into the boat together in unity, yoked together in oneness, understanding now that this is a spiritual thing that we need to overcome, it said that the winds ceased. They stopped. Imagine the amazement of everyone in the boat, and whatever fear that they were experiencing at that time, all of a sudden now had ceased and was starting to decline. Listen, 3 levels of fear here. 1, when they went out and they couldn't make any headway and they didn't want to let Jesus down. You know you felt that way before. 2, Jesus shows up, but you really don't recognize him in what's taking place, and sometimes the storm then intensifies. 3, you have to step out of your comfort zone where it's completely uncomfortable into the miraculous, into the place where miracles happen. That makes it 3 levels of fear and intensity. But look what happened. Even when you take it to the point where you feel like you're failing or you're going under, Jesus will be there to pull you up, yoke together with you, and get you through to the other side. How do we know that? Because it was his promise. Have a blessed day. Look forward to talking to you next week. God bless.